So it's been a couple of weeks since we read together because we had 4th of July, which was a holiday, and I was gone last weekend. Good morning. So it's been a couple of weeks since we've read together because we had 4th of July one weekend, and then I was away last weekend. So we've got to finish our book. We started our chapter book. Remember the house at Pooh Corner? See how old this book is? The pages are wrinkled and torn, and those are my favorite kind of books. That means they've been read a lot. So we have chapter 2 today. Remember we had read together chapter 1, which was In Which a House is Built at Pooh Corner for Eeyore. So we met Eeyore last time, right? So today we're chapter 2, in which Tigger comes to the forest and has breakfast. Did you have breakfast this morning? Did you have a good breakfast? So I have to use my glasses for this book because the print is very small. Winnie the Pooh woke up suddenly in the middle of the night and listened. Then he got out of bed and lit his candle and stumped across the room to see if anybody was trying to get into his honey cupboard. Do you know what a cupboard is? We call it a cabinet. Some people call it a cupboard. And they weren't. So he stumped back again, blew out his candle, and got into bed. And then he heard the noise again. "Is that you, Piglet?" he said. But it wasn't. "Come in, Christopher Robin," he said. But Christopher Robin didn't. "Tell me about it tomorrow, Eeyore," said Pooh sleepily. So he went through the list of all of his friends that he thinks might be there, but none of them answered. But the noise went on. "Wurra, wurra, wurra, wurra," said whatever it was, and Pooh found that he wasn't asleep after all. What can it be, he thought. There are lots of noises in the forest, but this is a different one. It isn't a growl, and it isn't a purr, and it isn't a bark, and it isn't the noise you make before beginning a piece of poetry. But it's a noise of some kind made by a strange animal, and he's making it outside my door. He's making it outside my door. So I shall get up and ask him not to do it. He got out of bed and opened his front door. "Hello," said Pooh, in case there was anything outside. "Hello," said whatever it was. "Oh," said Pooh. "Hello." "Hello." "Oh, there you are," said Pooh. "Hello." "Hello," said the strange animal, wondering how long this was going on. Pooh was just going to say a hello for the 4th time when he thought that he wouldn't. So he said, "Who is it?" instead. That was a good idea because that could have gone on for a long time. So there he is. There's Winnie the Pooh outside. And Winnie the Pooh and Tigger might look a little bit different than you're used to seeing them because the drawings sort of changed over the years and got a little bit more realistic. But those are the original drawings. See them? "Me," said a voice. "Oh," said Pooh. "Well, come here." So whatever it was came here, and in the light of the candle he and Pooh looked at each other. "I'm Pooh," said Pooh. "I'm Tigger," said Tigger. "Oh," said Pooh, for he had never seen an animal like this before. "Does Christopher Robin know about you?" "Of course he does," said Tigger. "Well," said Pooh, "it's the middle of the night, which is a good time for going to sleep, and tomorrow morning we'll have some honey for breakfast. Do Tiggers like honey?" "They like everything," said Tigger cheerfully. "Then if they like going to sleep on the floor, I'll go back to bed," said Pooh, "and we'll do things in the morning. Good night." And he got back into bed and went fast asleep. When he awoke in the morning, the first thing he saw was Tigger, sitting in front of the glass and looking at himself. "Hello," said Pooh. "Hello," said Tigger. "I found somebody just like me. I thought I was the only one of them." So, so Tigger's looking at himself in the mirror and he thinks that he found a friend. Pooh got out of bed and began to explain what a looking glass was. A looking glass is what we call a mirror. But just as he was getting to the interesting part, Tigger said, "Excuse me a moment, but there's something climbing up your table." And with one loud "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa," he jumped at the end of the tablecloth, pulled it to the ground, wrapped himself up 3 times, rolled it to the other end of the room, and after a terrible struggle, got his head into the daylight again and said cheerfully, "Have I won?" "That's my tablecloth," said Pooh as he began to unwind Tigger. "I wondered what it was," said Tigger. "It goes on the table and you put things on it." "Then why did it try to bite me when I wasn't looking?" There's Tigger. Can you see he's looking at himself in the broken bit of glass? Pooh's still in bed looking at him. Do your animals do that? Do you have a cat? Do they look in the mirror and think that it's another cat? "I don't think it did," said Pooh. "I tried," said Tigger, "but I was too quick for it." Pooh put the cloth back on the table, and he put a large honey pot on the cloth, and they sat down to a breakfast. As soon as they sat down, Tigger took a large mouthful of honey and looked up at the ceiling with his head on one side, and made exploring noises with his tongue and considering noises and "What have we got here?" noises. And then he said in a deciding voice, "Tiggers don't like honey." "Oh," said Pooh, and he tried to make it sound sad and regretful. "I thought they liked everything." So why do you think Pooh tried to make it sound sad and regretful? Do you think he was really sad that Tiggers don't like honey? Or do you think he was happy because there was more honey for Pooh? "Everything except honey," said Tigger. Pooh felt rather pleased about this and said that as soon as he had finished his own breakfast, he would take Tigger around to Piglet's house, and Tigger could try some of Piglet's haycorns. "Thank you, Pooh," said Tigger, "because haycorns is really what Tiggers like best." So after breakfast, they went round to see Piglet, and Pooh explained as they went that Piglet was a very small animal who didn't like bouncing, and asked Tigger not to be too bouncy just at first. And Tigger, who had been hiding behind trees and jumping out on Pooh's shadow when it wasn't looking, jumped out on Pooh's shadow when the shadow wasn't looking. That's my dog. He interferes sometimes. Sorry. Tiggers were only bouncy before breakfast, and that as soon as they had a few haycorns, they became quiet and refined. So by and by, they knocked at the door of Piglet's house. "Hello, Pooh," said Piglet. "Hello, Piglet. This is Tigger." "Oh, is it?" said Piglet, and he edged around to the other side of the table. "I thought Tiggers were smaller than that." "Not the big ones," said Tigger. "They like haycorns," said Pooh, "so that's what we've come for, because poor Tigger hasn't had any breakfast yet." Piglet pushed the bowl of haycorns toward Tigger and said, "Help yourself." And then he got close up to Pooh and felt much braver and said, "So you're Tigger?" "Well, well," in a careless sort of voice, but Tigger said nothing because his mouth was full of haycorns. So here's the picture of Pooh and Tigger eating breakfast. Pooh's digging right in, and Tigger's trying to decide if he likes honey, and then decided he didn't. After a long munching noise, he said, "Ears are..." and when Pooh and Piglet said, "What?" he said, "Scoozy," and he went outside for a moment. When he came back, he said firmly, "Tiggers don't like haycorns." "But you said they like everything except honey," said Pooh. "Everything except honey and haycorns," explained Tigger. When he heard this, Pooh said, "Oh, I see." And Piglet, who was rather glad that Tiggers didn't like haycorns, said, "What about thistles?" "Thistles," said Tigger, "is what Tiggers like best. So let's go along and see Eeyore," said Piglet. So the three of them went, and after they had walked and walked and walked, they came to the part of the forest where Eeyore was. "Hello, Eeyore," said Pooh. "This is Tigger." "What is?" said Eeyore. "This," explained Pooh and Piglet together, and Tigger smiled his happiest smile and said nothing. Eeyore walked all around Tigger one way, and then turned and walked around him the other way. What did you say it was, he asked. So can you see? There's Tigger and Pooh. Tigger. Ah, said Eeyore. He's just come, explained Piglet. Ah, said Eeyore again. He thought for a long time and then said, when is he going? Pooh explained to Eeyore that Tigger was a great friend of Christopher Robin's, who had come to stay in the forest. And Piglet explained to Tigger that he mustn't mind what Eeyore said because he was always gloomy. And Eeyore explained to Piglet that, on the contrary, he was feeling particularly cheerful this morning. And Tigger explained to anybody who was listening that he hadn't had any breakfast yet. I knew there was something, said Pooh. Tiggers always eat thistles, so that was why we came to see you, Eeyore. Don't mention it, Pooh. Oh, Eeyore, I didn't mean that. I didn't want to see you. Quite. But your new stripy friend, naturally, he wants his breakfast. What did you say his name was? Tigger. Come this way, Tigger. Eeyore led the way in the most thistly-looking patch of thistles that ever was, and waved a hoof at it. A little patch I was keeping for my birthday, he said. But, after all, what are birthdays? Here today and gone tomorrow. Help yourself, Tigger. Tigger thanked him and looked a little anxiously at Pooh. Are these really thistles? He whispered. Yes, said Pooh. What Tiggers like best? That's right, said Pooh. I see, said Tigger. He took a large mouthful and he gave a large crunch. Ow, said Tigger. He sat down and put his paw in his mouth. What's the matter? Asked Pooh. Hot, mumbled Tigger. Your friend, said Eeyore, appears to have bitten on a bee. Oh, no. See all your friends in the 100-acre wood? That wouldn't be very good if he bit on a bee. Pooh's friend stopped shaking his head to get the prickles out and explained that Tiggers don't like thistles. Then why bend a perfectly good one? Asked Eeyore. But you said, began Pooh, you said that Tiggers like everything except honey and acorns. And thistles, said Tigger, who was now running around in circles with his tongue hanging out. Pooh looked at him sadly. What are we going to do? He asked Piglet. Piglet knew the answer to that, and he said at once they must go and see Christopher Robin. You'll find him with Kanga, said Eeyore. He came close to Pooh and said in a loud whisper, Could you ask your friend to do his exercises somewhere else? I shall be having lunch directly and don't want it bounced on just before I begin. Trifling matter and fussy of me, but we always have our little ways. Pooh nodded solemnly and called to Tigger. Come along and we'll go see Kanga. She's sure to have lots of breakfast for you. Tigger finished his last circle and came up to Pooh and Piglet. Hot, he exclaimed with a large friendly smile. Come on! And he rushed off. Pooh and Piglet walked slowly after him, and as they walked, Piglet said nothing because he couldn't think of anything, and Pooh said nothing because he was thinking of a poem. And when he had thought of it, he began. What shall we do about poor Tigger? He never eats nothing, he'll never get bigger. He doesn't like honey and acorns and thistles because of the taste and because of the bristles. And all of the good things which an animal likes have the wrong sort of swallow or too many spikes. He's quite big enough anyhow, said Piglet. He isn't really very big. Well, he seems so. Piglet was thoughtful when he heard this, and then he murmured to himself, but whatever his weight in pounds, shillings, and ounces, he always seems bigger because of his bounces. So did Tigger really bite a bee? No, he bit the thistles, which have thorns on him, and he thought he got stung, but then he realized that they were just thorny, and he didn't like that. So, and at the whole poem, he said, Do you like it, Piglet? All except the shillings, said Piglet. I don't think they ought to be there. They wanted to come in after the pounds, explained Pooh, so I let them. And this is the best way to write poetry, letting things come. Oh, I didn't know, said Piglet. Tigger had been bouncing in front of them all this time, turning around every now and then to ask, Is this the way? And now at last they came in sight of Kanga's house, where Christopher Robin, Tigger, and there was Christopher Robin. Tigger rushed up to him. "Oh, there you are, Tigger," said Christopher Robin. "I knew you'd be somewhere." "I've been finding things in the forest," said Tigger importantly. "I found a Pooh and a Piglet and an Eeyore, but I can't find any breakfast." Pooh and Piglet came up and hugged Christopher Robin and explained that what had been happening. "Do you know what Tigger's like?" asked Pooh. "I expect if I thought very hard I should," said Christopher Robin, "but I thought Tigger knew." "I do," said Tigger. "Everything there is in the world except honey and acorns and, what were those hot things called?" "Thistles." "Yes, and those." "Oh, well, then, Kanga can give you some breakfast." So they went into Kanga's house, and when Roo said, "Hello, Pooh, hello, Piglet," once and "Hello, Tigger," twice, because he had never said it before, it sounded funny. They told Kanga what they wanted, and Kanga said very kindly, "Well, look in my cupboard, Tigger dear, and see what you'd like," because she knew at once. See them in the forest looking around? Because she knew at once Tigger seemed to be, oops, what happened? Because she knew at once that, however big Tigger seemed to be, he wanted as much kindness as Roo. "Shall I look too?" said Pooh. Pooh was beginning to feel a little 11 o'clock-ish, which means a little close to lunch, a little hungry. And he found a small tin of condensed milk, and something seemed to tell him that Tigger's didn't like this, so he took it into the corner by himself and went with it to see that nobody interrupted it. But the more Tigger put his nose into this and his paw into that, the more things he found which Tigger's didn't like. And then he found everything in the cupboard and couldn't eat any of it. He said to Kanga, "What happens now?" But Kanga and Christopher Robin and Piglet were all standing around Roo, watching him have his extract of malt. And Roo was saying, "Must I?" said Kanga. And Kanga was saying, "Now, Roo dear, you must remember what you promised." "What is it?" whispered Tigger to Pooh. "His strengthening medicine," said Piglet. "He hates it." So here's the cupboard. Yikes. Okay. You're backwards to me, so when I try and show you things, I have to figure it out. So Tigger came closer, and he leaned over to the back of Roo's chair, and suddenly he put out his tongue and took one large gulp. And with a sudden jump of surprise, Kanga said, "Oh!" and then clutched at the spoon again just as it was disappearing and pulled it safely back out of Tigger's mouth. But the extract of malt had gone. "Tigger dear," said Kanga. "He's taken my medicine, he's taken my medicine, he's taken my medicine," sang Roo happily, thinking it was a tremendous joke. Then Tigger looked up at the ceiling and closed his eyes, and his tongue went round and round his chops. In case he had left any on the outside, and a peaceful smile came over his face, and he said, "So that's what Tigger's like," which explains why he always lived at Kanga's house afterward and had extract of malt for breakfast, dinner, and tea. And sometimes when Kanga thought he wanted strengthening, he had a spoonful or two of Roo's breakfast after meals and medicine. "But I think," said Piglet to Pooh, "he's been strengthened quite enough." So there he is. Roo, the mama, is Kanga, the mama, is trying to feed baby Roo, and he doesn't want it because it's good for him and it's medicine, and Tigger takes it, and that ends up being what Tigger's like best. So another great story with our friends in the 100-Acre Wood. I like this because it shows a lot of their different personalities. Piglet is timid and shy, and he doesn't like a lot of bouncing and a lot of action around him. Tigger is just the opposite. He's always bouncing, always happy. And then there's Eeyore, who's always a little bit down, but they all get along. And Pooh tries to look out for all of them, and they're all connected by Christopher Robin, who is all of their friends. So this was a great story. It shows about how people like different things and how different people can get along and be friends and have a great day in the 100-Acre Wood. So next week it is chapter 3, in which a search is organized and Piglet nearly meets the heffalump again. So we haven't met the heffalump yet in these stories, so this will be great. I look forward to reading it with you, and as always, be well, be cautious, and be kind to one another.